Welcome to Smartphone Nation brought to you by Omidyar Network India. This is a podcast where we talk about how the next half billion are shaping their future online.
The next half billion or the NHB are the core of this podcast. They represent the second big wave of internet users in India, hence the term next. We define them as the cohort of 500 million first time internet users who have come online via mobile phones in the last 5 years.
From a demographic standpoint, they are mainly from the bottom 60% of India's income distribution. They are owners of small businesses like beauty salons and kirana shops, and also blue collar workers, domestic workers, security guards, etc. They are building a greater comfort with tech and represent the hustle and ambition of an aspiring India.
Today, we are going to look at Securetek's cutting edge cybersecurity products, which leverage AI and ML to secure enterprises from unknown and advanced cyber attacks. Securetek is helping small and medium businesses to buy and implement cybersecurity solutions seamlessly by providing them with affordable and high quality automated security management products. By helping SMBs protect their customer and employee data, Securetek is providing online users, especially the next half billion, a safer and risk free online environment. We have the co founder and CEO, Pankit Desai, with us today to talk about his story of impact. Pankit, thank you so much for making time for this. I really appreciate it. And I've been looking forward to this conversation, for one specific reason, which is SMBs and cybersecurity do not fit in my head together, right? In my head, they're very different things. And in my very, very limited understanding and belief, I didn't even think SMBs needed cybersecurity, right? Even though, of course, the threat of online challenges is everywhere, right? So, talk to me a little about how did you even chance upon this entire space? What's your experience been, and why did you start Securetech?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Let me let me tell you about why I became an entrepreneur, and then maybe why I became a cybersecurity entrepreneur. The two parts of the story. So I worked in corporate for over 20 years. So started my journey in '93 and till 2013, exactly 20 years. Had varieties of stints in companies which were either public sector, privately owned, owner dependent companies. And all across, I felt that while I had an amazing corporate run, so no two questions about how that journey went. So every year I got my growth and I got promoted. I got a chance to relocate to the US, spent 12 years there, worked for private equity backed company, turned the company around and sold it. But one question that kept bugging me in the back of my head is that it's in this large corporate environments, it is very hard to define whether the success is because of you or in spite of you, right? Because you just a cog in the wheel for most practical purposes, right? So I mean, I used to always joke that you can put a donkey or a monkey or a Pankit in a sales job in IBM and the sale will still happen, right? It's just the brand carries the momentum with it, right? So it actually didn't make a difference whether you joined the company or you left. So you start thinking, what is it that you are doing differently? And then I got a chance to work with an Indian entrepreneur in a company called Rolta. Saw him up close, and I could see the the decision making and the impacts that that individual had day in day out. It was a large company and an owner driven company or a professional company. As a cog in the wheel, you never see that close how things get done. But when I was started working with closely with the entrepreneur, I saw some of these decisions take shape. And just about that time in 12-13, this whole startup wave in India had kind of come up, right? So Snapdeal and Flipkart and a bunch of these companies, young guys stepping out, doing their own stuff, and they had an amazing positive coverage. And I felt that, having worked closely with an entrepreneur, working with a private equity company, turned them around, sold it. I saw one side that you could make a decision, second side you can make money. Maybe the twin objectives you said, okay, let's go and start something on the own. The next question isn't what do you start on, because I've been always a sales guy, right? So frankly, I would say you make something, I'll sell it, but someone has to make something, and that's not me. So I know Anand, the family, we work together as well. He came from the security background. I mean, he was the CEO for Symantec South Asia, right? So he and I, when we would discuss either in family occasions or just like that, we would keep chatting about what's happening in the security space and how there are different things that are happening globally that are making this journey very complicated, for a lack of a better word. And the thesis that we were driving towards is that the way technology is morphing itself, it is creating more and more opportunities for traditional industries to adopt digital transformation as part of their journey. And some were driven by regulatory pressures, some were driven by global pressures, some were just driven by the innovations or the need to survive. But security risks started kind of coming into it, because the more digital you become, the more ancillary risk of security starts coming in. And the way they were solving the security problem is by adding newer and newer smaller components to solve that specific challenge that was emanating from security. And while a larger enterprise, a large bank or a manufacturing company has the wherewithal to solve that problem, the smaller enterprises neither have the human resources or the financial resources to really make it work. So we felt that maybe as a late starter, we could do something different and bring a set of capabilities that addresses the challenge of this mid-market companies who themselves are now embarking on a digital journey because their customers are asking it, or their larger brethren are doing it, and they're kind of feeling left out. And the one thing that is stopping them from embracing this journey is the fear of potential security risk, because and most of these are owner driven companies, as in the SMB segment. The fear of the owner, or the colloquial word called lala, as we used to call these owners, as they always felt that, you know what, if it's on a pen and paper, I control it, right? I hold it, and if it goes to some ERP or some digital format somewhere, I don't know what's going to happen with it. And now, what if someone hacks it, and then everyone knows everyone's salary, my suppliers will know my pricing, whatever that might be. And therefore, I should not do it. But then the contrarian pressure used to be that, hey, if you're not doing it, someone else is doing it, and business is going to go away. So we kind of sensed that opportunity. I can't say that we had done a very wide survey to figure out that this is what it was going to be, but we had some inkling that this may be where the market was heading to. And if we could solve that problem differently, we probably had a role to play.
And Pankit, I'm very familiar with the mindset you're talking about. I grew up in a small town in Gujarat, right? So I'm surrounded by a lot of entrepreneurs who have scaled their business to a certain level, right? And the exact same things about letting go of control. I think it's a very very big challenge, but they're also dealing with the march of time and technology, right? Which you can't stop. I mean, that's just how the world functions now, and maybe this is for another conversation. I'm very curious, how do you even sell to a target segment like that, right? Which comes with very different kind of belief systems of how businesses should operate, right? But again, I'm getting sidetracked a little bit. But this is, I believe, you've been in the market for about 10 years now.
Yeah.
2013 11th year in operations, right? And given that you were really targeting a very unaddressed segment as such, right, you would have your stories of success, of failure, of learnings, right? Right. Tell us a little bit about them, what those stories are like, especially the ones which have stayed with you in this decade.
Yes, I'll tell you an anecdote. So we work with cooperative banks, and we started working with some of the larger cooperative banks. This would be as close to a smaller size scheduled bank. So these were reasonably large by assets, by presence geographically. And then we felt that maybe we should target some of the other ones, which are very small, 2 branches, 3 branches. And we approached the local association, the state association in Maharashtra, saying that, hey, we would like to partner with you and see if we could solve the security challenges. And just about that time, there was a very high-profile breach of Cosmos Bank out of Pune, where about 90 odd crores got stolen through cyber hackers from North Korea. So it was kind of fresh off the mind, and so even a cooperative bank could be attacked, and a sizable amount of money could be lost, was on everyone's mind. So we said, maybe why can't we kind of work off that? And there was a lot of pushback and hesitation, saying that we are too small, no one knows about us, why would they come after us? We have nothing to give. Cosmos is a relatively large bank, and therefore they got hacked, and yada yada. So we said, let's do some pilots. So we took a small bank in Chembur, in Bombay, and we said let's do a POC. Um, we connected that bank to our infrastructure, hardly about 4 or 5 devices that we connected, and we were seeing traffic from countries, North Korea, something in South Korea, from Netherlands. And I was thinking, and I was telling the chairman, I said, I don't know where your address is. I frankly did not know that you existed. I mean, you are a small 3 branch bank, very localized to that environment. But on the internet world, you are not anonymous. You may be anonymous in the physical world, right? Because maybe people just in and around your neighborhood knew about you. But on an internal world, you are an IP address. The moment you have that presence, you are no longer unknown. And in fact, there was a live attack that was getting carried out. It's just luckily that we were there and we were able to kind of warn them and they were able to stop it. So what it, it reinforced our own thinking, which we had started with, saying that just because you are doesn't mean that you are not interesting from an attacker's perspective. You are interesting. And second, you are, if nothing else, you are going to lose something which is near and dear to you. It may be money, it may be data, it may be your brand, it may be your regulatory compliance, or if nothing else, it could shut you down for a few days and you can't do business. So business continuity, right? So it could be any of the above. So you do have something to lose. So saying that, it's like most people in the old days, they used to leave the doors open saying, I have nothing to lose. But in the internet world, you do have something to lose, right? So that's one story that I had, from an anecdote perspective. And thankfully, after that, we signed an agreement with the association. We have 30 odd banks that came to our journey. A lot of these are in rural areas, and so on and so forth. So for what started out as a mostly like a I don't need it, to something that let's have a conversation, to then converting it to now a full stream line of business for us, is a good success story for me. From a failure perspective, as an organization, we hire talent. The talent is used either for building our products or offering our services or carrying out a set of audit activities and so on and so forth. And we struggled finding good talent. Even now, that's a problem. For whatever it is worth, the Indian education system, the colleges don't do justice to domains that are fairly, I'm not saying non-standard, but fairly practical in nature, where you have a lot of technology elements that need to be tried and tested, less theory, more practical. They don't do a very good job of it. And so we said, okay, why don't we go out and start our own training institute, right? So we started a training institute. We said we'll have a 3-month program. We will take these graduates, we'll train them, and then we'll hire them. And we can't hire all, but we'll hire a few, and the rest will obviously find some roles in the market space. But didn't realize that we as an organization, our DNA is B2B. We know how to sell to an enterprise. Training is a B2C, in fact, a B2S, a B2 student market, right? Which is a very, very different DNA. So where do you source them from? How do you engage with them? And everyone has only one question in their mind saying, will you find me a job? Now, that's not the intent of the institute, and that's not our intent. Yeah, we'll give a job to a few, but we can't give it to all, right? So we ran it for about 7 or 8 months, then shut it down, saying that, you know what, not our cup of tea. We don't understand this phase. While the intent may be however noble, doesn't work for us. So then we took the content that we created and started giving out to colleges for free of cost, saying that, you know what, you take this, you can build on. So it had both the theory as well as practical labs. We told them how to run the labs, we'll set it up for you, and then we signed a few, and then so that's just, as an entrepreneur, you keep trying stuff, most don't work. So this is one of that.
No, and those journeys are, I think as you look back in that moment, it might be frustrating, but I guess when you look back, it is a learning which you carry through the rest of your entrepreneurial ambition as well, right? And you're absolutely right. I mean, these are completely two different segments, and the job guarantee is not something which you could really give, right? Because you're not hiring people by the thousands. That you could say, if you clear our training, I'm definitely going to hire you. So that makes so much sense, right? And just before this, Niveditha and I, we were discussing about the idea of impact, right? what sort of impact is to an entrepreneur. So, of course, the first impact is very much to your customers, to yourself as a business, to revenue, to bottom lines, right? But we just probably want to talk a little bit about that. And Nivedita, I think you had a few questions around this.
Uh, I, really, just that. How do you foresee Securetech creating this impact, and has this impact evolved over time, over the course of 10 years, and how do you see it um, panning out in the future?
So if I was to classify impact, I would look at it in three broad buckets.
Hmm.
Um, One is obviously the business side of the house. So today we've grown to about 450, 470 employees. We have 170 odd customers. We are present across multiple cities and now countries. So yeah, so there is some semblance of footprint for ourselves, and that has found resonance in the market, statistical resonance in the market. So leave that aside for a while, and yeah, every business has to have that kind of an impact, and I think we've had some, and a lot more to go. But the bigger impact in my mind, what I see as what we have been able to achieve is that if you look at our talent pool, our average, our median age, sorry, is roughly about 23, 24. So it's a very, very young population that's part of our company. For majority of them, this is their first job. So fresh out of college, they found a career with us, and we pride ourselves into being an organization that can hire kids fresh from college and make them a cybersecurity professional. Three, if we were to look at it, we don't hire from top tier institutes. We don't hire from top tier cities. We go to tier two, tier three. Um, just as an interview philosophy, if you were to go for a placement drive, uh, every kid who is interested can apply. No 60% and above, nothing that we don't believe in false hurdles to become part of it. We do our own test. If you score certain things and above, certain number and above, we will interview you one on one and try and see how good, bad. It from a fitment perspective, no kid is good or bad, just whether it fits us or you fit, we fit you, whatever. And then everyone else who did not make the cut, we meet them in groups of 3 or 4, because you must just had a bad day that day, or you come from vernacular medium, they don't understand the language that well. Unfortunately, in India, that's one part that you have to understand. So you may understand the question wrongly. And we'll hire, so we'll meet them in group. And what we are looking for in any of this is just attitude, hunger. Are you hungry to build a career? Are you coming from a relatively average, lower middle class kind of background, trying to break out of that rut? And if I look back today, I'm already getting goosebumps when I say this, but we have kids whose parents have been municipal sweepers, garbage pickers, drivers, housemaids. Uh, they are the first graduate in the family. They are very happy. I can see, these days I don't go for placement interviews anymore. We have become large, so our HR team cannot go. But in the early days, till about 5 years back, Anand and I used to physically go down to these colleges, and I can see the joy in their eyes when they get the offer letter. Right? But the first offer letter, whether you join or not, but the first offer letter is your reformation or reaffirmation of your 16, 17 years of studies, right? You studied for that. If you did bachelor, 16 years you studied. And the only proof that you did well was an offer letter, right? Because someone is willing to pay you money for whatever that you accumulated, right? So to see it in their eyes, immediately calling their parents up or whoever their loved ones saying that I got the job. And it's amazing. It just, so to me, that's, if you can keep doing that through whatever the life of Securetech is going to be, that would be our biggest give back. And we started this in India, now we are in the US. We did the exact same thing in Arkansas, Little Rock, where we hire, they're not kids, mostly they're in the 30s, 40s, people who are looking for a career change. They may be a mechanical engineer or an automotive engineer. There's one person who's a ex-police force, local police force. They wanted to do a career shift, so they go through this course and we bring them on board, right? So being that place where you find your first stepping stone into this world of tech, computers and security in that order, we feel we seem to have made a little bit of difference. and we hope to continue. So that's the second part of the impact. The third is, I remember this distinctly when we started out as a company and we were raising our first round, or before that, when we went out on this journey of looking to raise money. I mean, every single every single investor would come and say, you know what, India is not a product place and much less a security product space, right? So you guys are in a wrong country, wrong space. No product from India will ever get built, bought, can't go global. I mean, it was almost like, that is a mindset uh, chasm that we had to cross when we were having these conversations. And we had to always be kind of defensive. And the whole question thing, these big companies have all of this data and all this access. How are you guys sitting in this corner going to get any of this? And I mean, just doubting and doubting of capabilities, right? It's our own people doubting our own capabilities, right? So it kind of got us to a place that, sometimes you start wondering whether you really are in the right space or on the wrong space. But to be able to now get there, and then to see a lot of other security companies that have come up in the last 5-7 years, they have been successful, they have raised money, they have gone global. And I'm really wanting to say that maybe 10 years from now, just like people associate security with Israel, there should be a time that they should associate security with India. Why not? I mean, why should it only be a services economy? This is also a product economy. It's also a tech economy. It's also a security economy. And if we can make it happen, that would be our impact in times to come.
Just one thing, and
Yes.
I think the mindset bit you're talking about is really a very large impact, right? Because I started out my career in an IT services company, right? And for a very long time we did believe, as you said, that we could only make IT services and we really couldn't do anything else. And now I work at a product based tech company for my day job, right? And people of course now believe that we can make products because we have shipped products. I think Zoho going public was a huge event for the entire product based ecosystem of India, of entrepreneurs, right? Because building India, shipping to the world, I think really became a reality for at least the general public. Of course the entrepreneurs of course knew it was happening all along. And I think uh, that mindset shift is an impact which we don't often talk about, because it's very easy to miss these large scale shifts unless you are in the in this space, uh, right? And so just one question, and again we were discussing this, that uh, has your idea of impact changed with time, right? So when you started out with Securetech, with Anand, versus how you see impact today, has that gone through an evolution? You did talk about the three things, but has some of it come at different parts of the journey, or how do you see the future of it looking like?
Yeah, to be candid, we never imagined this to be the impact. I mean, like any entrepreneur, our only simple impact was to be scaling the business, right?
Hmm.
And so getting customers, getting revenue, building products. So it would be false for me to say that we had this grand vision of solving this world problem. That was never the intent. It's as you evolve, as you go along, as you discover, you find things that you can look at changing, right? So we did not go out raising fund from day one, so we did not know what the investment climate was going to be. It was only when we went and started speaking to the funds is when we got this feedback, right? It was not that, so originally when the first set of people we hired from Mumbai, people who we knew, so we never had that experience of what it meant to give jobs to freshers, right? So some of it is a process of evolution, and you discover your own sweet spots, and that's how it happened. We hope to find newer areas of impact as we go along. I don't have answers for that, all of that yet, but the one thing that we would like to be known for, hopefully, is that here is a company that looked at a segment that was hitherto not very favorably looked at by big tech companies, by big security companies, because the value or volume wasn't justifiable. And these guys made a business out of it. Yeah, and they were profitable. They did the scale and whatever else. But they also facilitate the journey of digital transformation because they gave them that assurance that there was someone watching behind their back, and that they could go out and scale and hopefully become the large corporates at some point in time, which otherwise they would have never happened if they had not embraced that journey, right? So we had a little bit of part to play in securing that journey, and to be known for that, right? So that would be a great place for us to find ourselves in. And one other thing, slightly more nationalistic than anything else, I always felt, and again, process of evolution, is majority of the security tech companies are Western in India. They are the ones who play. And you just saw what happened in Ukraine and Russia, this whole conflict. West can turn off the spigots. They just said no more SWIFT, right? Today we are the best friends of West. Who knows what happens tomorrow, right? I mean, things don't work out well. And I do remember I used to sell servers and all in the early days of my career. And post the 98 nuclear tests, the West turned off the technology transfer to India, right? So one fine day, just a notification comes, no more tech to India. And India would really struggle to find its tech bearings, right? So you don't know how some of these things get played out, and security is very core to how our digital infrastructure is going to survive. So that tech has to, at least some part of the tech has to be in the control of the country. That's hopefully that's one thing that we're trying to work towards.
Yeah, and again, I didn't think of it from that perspective. I think when we think of security, even for someone who works in a tech company, right? Of course, think of security of our systems, our data, and so on. But the fact that it has national level implications, right? Because in the last 15 years or so, we have really leapfrogged into bringing technology into every aspect of our lives. So it's not just limited to
Yes.
only financial services, right? Right,
Yes.
we have everything from UPI to Aadhaar, right, which are some of the largest global projects
Yeah.
which come into play. Just again, I'm just very conscious of time because we have about only 15 minutes, but wanted to talk a little bit about the future, right, of cybersecurity and the kind of sectors which probably we don't see it making an impact in, or it is not making an impact now, but in the future you believe that these sectors will require very significant understanding and usage of cybersecurity.
So theoretically speaking, every segment, every size, every geography has a potential security threat. The the severity, the intensity, the volume may be different depending on uh, a lot of factors. So, for example, if you are in the banking ecosystem, you will be under constant attack every single day for a variety of reasons. One could be an impact on a banking ecosystem is an impact on the trust in the country, and there are nation states who may not want to be having that, right? So they will push for bringing it down so that things kind of get wobbly. There are people who may be interested in going after banks because finding that the depository of money and they have cash and therefore they can give it, right? That segment tends to be always in the forefront from a news perspective. But I don't know if you watched the news recently, but Cognizant, for the first time, the healthcare business did more business last quarter than financial services, right? So healthcare is another segment that is embracing tech like there is no tomorrow, right? There is a lot of inefficiencies in the way healthcare gets delivered in India and globally. And then the only way you are able to you're going to be give like the whole Jandan Aadhaar and mobile was going to the banking to the unbanked, right? Very similarly, health to the unhealth, or the underprivileged people, right? So getting to the last mile person and being able to give them healthcare can be only possible if you are going to give access to technology, because it's impossible for you to find the physical the medical infrastructure in every nook and corner of the country. So that place, tech will be very, very integral. And in case of the financial ecosystem, at worst, you will lose money. At worst, that's all can happen. In case of healthcare, you have a huge issue of privacy where something sensitive between a patient and a doctor can get leaked, and you may have ramifications that you may not want it to be public for whatever reason. It's a very, very private conversation between the two individuals. Worse would be if I was to hack into your systems and change the medical data, right? In this digital world, let's say there is a patient who is in a remote part of India consulting with a doctor in Delhi. Let's say it's physically possible now because you created this infrastructure. and I was to interject to an attack and change the parameters that the medical report was going in. Doctor will see something else, they may understand something else, they may treat you something else, and you may have a worse situation than what you're going to be, or any other ramification that may come out, right? So healthcare, you are starting to play with people's lives. So beyond the money part, which is obviously the case, there is a risk to life that becomes a challenge, right? So my thesis is healthcare will be the second segment, like fintech, that will see significant digital transformation in the coming years, and along with it, you will see a lot of security risks that are going to come up. The third segment, which is fairly under noticed, no one cares for it for a variety of reasons, the primary being lack of funds, is the education segment. The universities, schools, and colleges, they are, and the amount of tech they're consuming these days is phenomenal, and when this became multifold because of the experience in COVID, where they were forced to use tech to be able to deliver education, and now that has become like the norm, where they will use tech to not only provide but also continuously engage with the student community. And I'm very worried about the potential impact of security, because now these are people who are, or the kids who are very curious by nature, have been exposed to technology, and can be taken into paths that become very, very difficult, right? So there was this whole in between, I think what, 4 years back, if I'm not mistaken, this whole challenge of blue whale, where they would get challenges, and at the end the kid would commit suicide, right? Because you engage in platforms where parents have no visibility, and a lot of these parents are not tech savvy, but the kids are far more tech savvy. So I'm very worried about the student community. So the educational segment is where I feel that there has to be a significant involvement of security in some shape and form. And then there are universities that are on the cutting edge of research. So a lot of research gets done in the university, and people will go after the IP that is getting created. So that's the other element of it. So whatever you have done research on, you may want to monetize, but if someone is already stealing it, then there's nothing left to monetize, right? So there's a segment that I worry about. Right now, it is not there in anyone's radar, but I feel a few years from now, that's going to start becoming up and center. Government doesn't spend money on security the way I would like it to think. So some of those will be, but if you look at state governments, local governments, they're rolling out the smart city projects, they're rolling out this huge, humongous digital transformation initiatives, but security is a problem. So I think these are some of the segments that people don't normally focus on. Otherwise, manufacturing, pharma, services, they all will keep doing it. And the last area that I worry about, and there's just an article today that came out. This is a subsidiary of Infosys, IMS. I forget what MNS stands for. This is the company that it acquired. They service the financial sector. And Bank of America has said that some 75,000 user accounts got leaked because IMS's systems got breached. So the problem that is emanating now is what is called a supply chain attack, where if you are part of someone's supply chain, just not physical, but digital. I'm using your software, I'm using your services, I'm using your platforms, whatever that might be. Attackers are attacking me not to get after me, but to get after everyone that I service, right? So if I have 1,000 customers, if I get breached, then all 1,000 customers are impacted, right? So that's another area that's coming up as a significant challenge.
Great, Pankit. And I think this really gives us a very well-rounded view of the entire space and the ability of one, of course, Securetech as an organization, and also cybersecurity to create an impact in so many aspects. At least before this conversation, I didn't think there was in so many. Of course, the obvious ones we are aware of, right? Banks, financial tech companies, is we are all aware of, and once in a while you will see some news of data breaches, and we've all received notifications as customers that, hey, sorry, your data has been breached, and we are informing you of it, and so on. So Pankit, thank you so much for this conversation. I really appreciate it, and thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much.